Chainsaw! Okay guys, I think this is basically a no-brainer prep, and I'll tell you why. Already I cut a lot of my own firewood, so I have to have a chainsaw. It just makes sense. You probably caught on that I have a pretty big acreage here on my family property, and so wood cutting's just like part of every week basically. Now recently I've been watching some footage of hurricane aftermath, specifically in Carriacou, Grenada, where Hurricane Beryl came through and devastated the small island where I take students each year for dive certification and coral research. And also some footage in North Carolina, I believe, and I was really surprised. I didn't previously know how much damage had been caused there. But one of the commonalities that I saw, aside from people not quite being prepared for dealing with like clean drinking water and food supplies and fuel, is that there were a lot of access issues around fallen trees, and some of those trees were enormous. So in my situation, like, I'm never going to be in a hurricane because I'm too far inland, but we do get windstorms, and I've talked about previously how we've had infestations that have gone through and killed a lot of our conifer trees. And we're just ripe. Every time there's a windstorm, I lose a couple dozen trees on the property here, and so fallen trees are constantly an issue, and they're also impacting our energy grid when they fall on the lines. So a chainsaw is critical. Now, a couple things that I wanted to talk about around chainsaws, and that I also learned recently in looking at the scientific literature, include their longevity and cost for parts based on the amount of wood you can cut. So first things first, I bought a spare chain and bar, because the last thing you want to have happen is that you get stranded with a broken chain or a bent bar. It's nice to have a backup in your kit, and then just in a few minutes you can be set back up and running with a brand new chain and bar. This was only $60 at Princess Auto for a 20-inch Oregon bar. This is name brand stuff, and the chain, 20-inch chain. So that was like, that's the no-brainer right there. Good backup, and it's going to last me a really long time. So this is some of the research that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So the research that I was reading, and I'll link it below, it's from 2013, so the prices are going to be off a bit, but I think like some of the other stats are going to be true. They said that a mid-size commercial grade chainsaw, and I believe they were cutting in beech forests in Europe somewhere, so not just like cutting softwoods but hardwood cutting, but they basically stated that a mid-size commercial grade or pro grade saw is going to have a 4,000 hour duty life. 4,000 hours, that's a lot of cutting. This saw probably cost me just under $1,000. It's going to last for 4,000 hours, so that's not very difficult math there if you figure out the cost per hour operating. And in that same research article, or a different one, they said that over the lifetime of a saw, it would cost you about as much in repairs as it cost you for the initial upfront saw. And those repairs are mainly going to be things like engine issues, electrical issues, bar replacement, and a few other topics. I can pull up their infographic if you're interested to see what most of the main repair issues were. So the way I figure it, that's about a 50 cents per hour operating cost in 2013 dollars, so pretty low. Now, I run a lot of premium fuel through my saws, but for emergencies, I like to stock a few gallons of the engineered premix fuel. And the reasons for that are, this has a 10-year shelf life. 10 years. And, it's ideally you don't store it on the ground or on a metal rack. I've noticed that it does tend to rust a little bit over time, but like on a shelf in your workshop or in your basement, it's going to last for 10 years. After you open it, it's still got a 2-year lifespan before it goes off or rots or whatever. So far superior to premium gas. So just for that reason alone, I think it's probably worth spending the extra money and having a few gallons of this stocked up. Now, how much wood can I cut per piece of equipment? I'm holding two chain sharpeners in my hand. So based on that same research, you can cut a, I'm going to have to pull up the table and maybe voice over how it all works per cord. But when I did the math, I basically figured out that you could cut 27 bush cords per chain and two sharpeners. So for every 27 bush cords, you can expect to wear out a chain and two sharpening rods. And 27 bush cords, you know, a bush cord is 4 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet long, if you don't know the measurements. A lot of the time we talk about face cords, so that would be like a single row of wood that's 4 feet high and 8 feet long. So that basically works out to 108 face cords. That's a lot of firewood to cut with one chain and two sharpening tools. Now for gas, you can cut a bush cord with 1.47 liters of gas, I believe. I should have brought notes out with me because now I'm just going from memory. So you can figure out, you know, your gas cost for 1.47 liters of gas to cut a bush cord, which is 3 face cords. So that's fairly inexpensive. Even if you figure you're paying the $30 per gallon approximately to buy the premix, your cost per bush cord is going to be about $13.25 based on current prices, which is not terrible, especially if you look at what you would pay for hard maple cut split delivered. Basically in my area is running about $140 per face cord. So if you can cut it yourself, if you've got the time, and you don't price in your labor, your running costs on a saw are actually quite low as long as you're doing your maintenance and running clean gas through it and keeping your chain sharp and not doing anything silly with it. So that's my no-brainer prep advice for the week is to take care of your saw, get a good saw, and make sure you have like all the right equipment to back you up in an emergency. Do I want to add anything to that about chainsaws? I mean, obviously they're quite dangerous. If you have an opportunity to take a training course, you should do so. I always wear my helmet and my visor, and I'm really careful about how I work with a saw, because you know, you can obviously have a pretty terrible accident with one. And I have a saw first aid kit now that I try and carry with me, which includes a cat tourniquet. In case I ever do get a bad cut, at least I can like help myself and get out to professional help. But mainly for in the context of your resiliency and your ability to respond to an emergency, I think a chainsaw is a really great idea, knowing how to use one and then having the right stuff to support your use of that saw, including a backup bar and chain. Kind of a no-brainer. Anyway, it's hunting season, so I definitely have to switch gears. I've been cutting some firewood, but I've got deer hunting on the brain, and I've got an upcoming trip to Manitoulin Island where I'm holding a doe tag, although I have been out a few times in my area and in the Parry Sound, Ontario area, unsuccessfully so far, but Manitoulin Island's like a pot of gold for deer hunting, so hopefully have some good footage from that hunt for you coming up soon. Okay, I hope you're all enjoying the fall weather. You're ready for winter, because it's definitely coming, and I'll catch you on the next one.